Welcome to Full Circle Podcast number 9. I'm one of your co-hosts, David Roberts, along with the OG, Dr. Neil Holmes. Absent today as our special guest host, Kendra Haskins. But we have a very special guest in the building, someone that I went to college with many years ago. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago that was. Some of you already know. She's an independent social worker. She's an attorney, and she's an author. And we're going to talk about all of that. Welcome to our guest, Miss J.J. Winston.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks so glad to be here. We're glad to have you. I know when we talked earlier or communicated by email, I wanted to talk a little bit about mental health in the Black community, and you've done a lot in that. So just to lay the groundwork, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I know it goes back like several years, and that's not a dig.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Well, I did go to college with David. Yay. We went to Akron University, one of the best schools. We're Zips. Right. And that's where I got my bachelor's degree in social work. And then I went on and got my master's of social work from Case Western Reserve. And I started working in adoption and foster care. So I did that for 5 years. And while I was doing that, I decided to go to law school because I really wanted to do more for the community and more for our young people. And I'm going really, really far back, even before college. I went to Cleveland Heights High, and when I was there, one of my peers committed suicide when I was in the 10th grade. And that is the reason that I decided to dedicate my life to service and dedicate my life to children, because she was 15. She was African-American. And back in our day, we ain't gonna date ourselves, but back in our day, we didn't really have that many African-American young people who were killing themselves. And after she did it, it became like a really big deal. And throughout my career, because after I, became an attorney, and while I actually was in the process of finishing law school, I got a job as the client rights officer at the Alcohol, Drug, and Mental Health Board. I was there for 19 years. And what I've seen is a lot. I've seen a lot of stigma. And I think that stigma is one of the biggest reasons why people have not gotten help, and particularly in our community. So when I decided to write my fiction book, I have a lot of experience and I have a lot of education, and I feel like this: if other people can write a book, I can write a book. Okay. So I wrote a book. And one of the things I wanted to do was to use my fiction as a vehicle to help eradicate stigma. And, use my story as a way to help people understand that, everybody is going through something. Everybody got to cross the bear. We just all got different crosses, and we all carrying them different. But people are all dealing with something. And I just want to eradicate stigma.
Let's talk about that stigma for a minute, because that's huge. And I think personally, from the outside looking in, you work more directly in the field, so you may know more than I do. That the stigma of mental health in the Black community, I wouldn't say it has disappeared, but I think it's shrinking, and I think it's shrunk drastically in recent years. Do you agree with that? And if you do, why do you think that is?
You know what? I do agree with that. And I think that it's because there are people who are really have a grassroots efforts to try to get people to understand that having mental health issues is human. And we're all human. And what we have done, I just want to be clear about the stigma and some of the things that have happened in our community. They're negative, but they were born out of a good place. And I'm going to say what I mean when I say that.
Please expound on that.
When we were, our parents and our family members told us to keep our business to ourselves. Do not go out and be telling everybody all your business. And one reason why they did that is because social workers and other people who were in the helping professions would come and use the information that was given to them to take our children. And maybe they would misread our families or view them through negative eyes. So when I say it's born out of a good place, that's what I mean. What we need to work better on is to make sure that we have culturally sensitive people who do this work that understand our community, so our kids are not just being taken for no reason. But, I think that's one reason why that happened. And we also were told, we survived slavery. So, I mean, if you can survive slavery, what you mean? You got a mental health problem, basically man up. That's what we were told. Yeah. And, what we need to realize is the connection between our mental health and our physical health. If you are having issues that are being, you're not dealing with, you're going to probably have some physical problems too. It's sooner or later.
Now, when you talk about stigma and that mental health and how it's disappeared, I know I also think
I ain't gonna say it's disappeared, David. It's shrinking.
It's shrinking. And thanks for the correction, because that's what I said too. I said it's shrinking. I definitely didn't say it disappeared.
Right.
Do you think that also ties into kind of like how we're seeing drug abuse now? Like, and how we're dealing with drug addicts? Because I know a lot of people who feel, and I'm one of them, that it's so stupid to throw somebody in jail for having a drug problem. Like, even if it's possession of crack, as horrible as crack is, that person has a problem. Why are we throwing them in jail for that?
You know what, David? You just dated yourself, sweetie. Because you know what? Let me tell you why. This is my joke when I worked at the Adamsport. Only old people use crack still, okay? Young people don't use crack. But one reason why,
crack is whack.
They'll tell you that. Young people like crack. To me, crack. I want to crack, But one of the things I think that I see, and I think this is something we need to be honest about as a community and as a country, we have seen a shift in how we view people who have drug problems because of the heroin addiction issues in all of our communities. And it is predominantly a Caucasian situation, okay? And because we have so many people who are addicted to heroin and opiates, it's flooded to basically our systems. And of course, we have to have a shift, because of that. So I'm not going to say that there has not been a difference in the treatment of people who have heroin addiction as opposed to crack, okay? But you are right. What is wrong to throw people away, and what we need to be careful of, and I want to be very careful on how I'm saying this, whatever issues that our Caucasians, brothers and sisters have, we will soon have it, and vice. So right now, you may see more Caucasian people dying of heroin overdoses, but what people don't realize is there are still Black people dying of it too. But what I see and what I've seen in my experience is family members lying about why their relatives died. They don't want to have to face the fact that they died of heroin. They don't want to have to tell their family members that, because, we're judgmental to each other. And what we have to do is look at this universally as a disease. And we also, as a community, need to hold our leaders to a standard. And that is, we can't have a difference in treatment based on the type of, use. It should be across the board. Crack, heroin. We don't want to throw anybody away. Rehabilitating people is what we need to be doing.
Definitely.
Yeah. In terms of opiate abuse, the numbers I've seen show that our community numbers are up in terms
very much
in terms of death, especially on this East Coast.
Yes.
And whites might be leveling off because of policy and so forth. But the question I have in terms of mental health, in terms of physical health, men in our community are more reluctant to access care. Is that the same in terms of mental health? Is that the same situation where men are less likely to access it? And what is the reason for that? And what can we do about it? How can we as a community intervene in that?
I think that men are less likely because when people think about mental health, there's the stigma of being weak.
Right.
And so men, want to be strong because women like strong men. Basically y'all do stuff because you like women. Okay. So, and that's what you do to attract women. What we need to do is change our conversation. That's what I try to do with my work. And to tell people that, having an issue sitting down and talking about it is basically being strong. What people don't realize is weak to keep pushing stuff down. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen is it's going to come up and it's going to come out. And it's going to come out negatively. You know, you can't just keep pushing something down. It's like a volcano. Sooner or later, it's going to blow.
Right.
So what we need to do is give people healthy places, healthy spaces to be able to discuss what's going on. You know, we got to, you got to weigh that. If you're getting in a relationship, when I was writing my book, I would go around and ask random questions to random people just to get people's point of view. Okay. So in my book, my main character is dealing with a family secret. And he gets married and he doesn't tell his wife. You know, I went around and I polled people and I asked people, before you get married, do you think that there's certain things that you should be told about that person's past? And I got varied answers. Some people said, if it happened before me, I don't want to know about it. You know, if it's something, some people said to not tell me is a betrayal. You lied to me. So basically, I think that we all just need to have a place where you can talk about what's going on, but you don't want it to get thrown back in your face either. If I tell you something extremely sensitive about something that happened to me, when you get mad at me, I don't want you to be like, yeah, and that's the reason why such and such did this to you, that kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying about a safe space. You got to pick the right people to share your information with.
Exactly.
Well, where can we find these? Where are the resources in our community for these safe spaces?
Well, you know what I'm going to be? That's a very, very good question. One of the places that I love to go to is the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. They're a great place to get information. And a great place to look for African American mental health support groups. We do have some. If you live in Cleveland, Murtis Taylor, they have some. Okay? That's one of our mental health agencies and one of our African American communities. There are a lot of places where you can get it. If you work and you need to get mental health assistance, you can call your EAP program. A lot of people have EAP and never even use that benefit that's there for them to see where you can find some resources for you. You can call SAMHSA. That just went out of my head. It's going to come right back to actual, I'm giving mnemonics, but I'm trying to give you the actual name. But it is the federal arm, substance abuse, mental health. They're federal so that you can get, and I'm trying to get this information really quick for you right now so that I have it right here for you to give you the number. Okay.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. I could post it in the comments on the YouTube video. So
okay. Yes, I'll definitely get that though. But those are very good places. And they have a 24/7 hotline. SAMHSA does. Okay. So if you're having, issues with substance abuse or mental health, you can call that hotline. They have text. You can text if you're having a crisis, a mental health crisis. You can actually use your phone to text and chat with somebody who's a therapist or a counselor that can help you. So I think that there's so many more resources because of technology that people can use too. And more people are talking about this and it's becoming more humanized, which is why I think some of the stigma is starting to erode, which I'm very glad about.
Now, JJ, I want to go back to something you mentioned. You said, you talk about how people always say, well, you survived slavery. And I've always thought it was interesting that, okay, we came out of slavery. And of course, I don't think in 1865, I wasn't there, but I don't think in 1865 that all of our people got therapy, to deal with that post-traumatic stress. But then, and I want both of your opinions on this, you as a social worker, Dr. Holmes, you as an expert in African-American studies. Years later, why do you think it is, if it's true or if it's just a perception, but why do you think it is that we're not the majority of the serial killers? I'm
glad you asked that question. I was waiting on that one.
Ice Cube kind of joked in the movie, was it Barbershop 2? He's like, black people, it was kind of a joke, but it was kind of true. We commit crimes that make sense. We don't have money. We go rob somebody with some money. We go sell drugs to make money, but we don't just kill 12 people just for the sake of it. Generally speaking. So is that real or perception? And if it's real, why is that? Why do you think that is? I know we can.
You want to take you first, Dr. Neil?
No, you go first.
It's not real. It's a myth.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you what it is. It's something called white woman syndrome. And I'm going to tell you this as a lawyer. I'm going to give you some legal, little bit of knowledge here. We decide what what punishment to give people based on who the victim is. So what happens is black serial killers kill black people mostly. You are more likely to kill somebody who looks like you.
Right.
Unless it's a hate crime. Okay, and that's what you're going for. But generally, your victims are going to look like you. So let's just look at Sowell. That's a good example.
Perfect example.
Nobody cared. Nobody cared. One of my best friends was the prosecutor for that case. That case should have made Good Morning America. They should have been featuring her on Good Morning America. Did you see it?
Could you give our listeners and viewers a little bit more background on the Sowell case? Because us being from the Cleveland area, of course, we know about it.
Yes, you're right. Anthony Sowell, he was a serial killer here in Cleveland, Ohio. A little bit of background. He lived on the east side, close to a sausage factory. A very famous sausage factory here in Cleveland. And the smell was so bad from the decaying bodies in his yard and in his house. They thought that it was something going on with the sausage factory. And those people spent thousands of dollars to find out later it was because of these bodies. We know that he killed about 11 women, but those are just the ones we found. Even one of the young ladies, her body was missing. They only found her head. They really don't know how many people he killed. But the point I want to make is all of his victims were people who they considered to be throwaway people. They had drug problems. They were street people.
Right.
If it had been 11 middle-class white women locked up in his basement, that would have made national, international news. There have been a lot of black serial killers, a lot more than people realize. It's just their victims didn't get the same type of attention.
Yeah, there have been black serial killers who lived to be old men and killed in the I think this guy just got caught and he confessed, I think, to like 60 or 70.
100.
Oh, is that many?
Yeah, and isn't he from here too? He's from around Ohio. I'm gonna tell you his name. He has killed so many people. His name, wait a minute, I had it right here. Is it Samuel Little? I think it's Samuel Little.
It's interesting. A lot of our viewers are going to be disappointed to hear this because we kind of take pride in the fact that, we're not serial killers. We're not doing this. That's one of the things we take pride in. But you make a very good point. It's because they're killing their own women. They just don't get the publicity. Or their own people. They don't get the publicity. Wow.
I'm going to tell you, there was a white serial killer from Eastlake, Ohio. And I guess he used to work on Wall Street, and he took all black women and he put them in his basement. He tied them up and he handcuffed them. And he just did some horrible things. I don't even want to go into it. It was so bad, but he got a whole lot of attention, because he was a white stockbroker who basically became a serial killer, It really is about who the victim is, and that's wrong. And that goes back to a native son, if you remember.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what the issues is. So, in the native son, Bigger killed the sister on purpose. He killed this woman on purpose. He killed the white woman by accident. Mm-hmm. He went to trial for killing the white woman, but the person he purposely killed, he didn't get charged for. And that's basically what you kind of see going on here. We have to, our people matter, or even street people matter.
Yeah. The level of violence in our community is higher or as high as the violence in any war zone anywhere in the world.
That's right.
And if you take if you take the statistics from our community, we're up there with some of the largest murder capitals in the world, and the largest murder capitals in the world are largely Black. You know, Brazil, you know, and so forth. We are really in a serious situation where you have all this pressure, and we are carrying out on each other. We're taking it out on each other.
Let's tie that in the mental health. Do you think, and you kind of touched on it, Dr. Holmes, do you think it's because we never got the therapy that we needed after slavery and Jim Crow, or is it just the economic situation that unfortunately a lot of our people are still in, and they're just reacting?
I think he was asking you, Dr. Neil.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I didn't want to take your question because you let me talk, I will.
Okay. Yeah, I just think it's the fact that we're a colonized people. We're in a situation. You know, this book by Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth, he's looking at what happened among Arabs when they were colonized by the French inside of Algeria, and they were killing each other because they couldn't kill the oppressor, and they were locked into the system. And the more intense the system is that we're locked in, the more we are blowing up at each other, you know, and that's just my take on it. I don't, you know, I'm not a specialist in the area, but that's my take on it. I just got,
it's respectful.
I got a book by this guy on violence, and I wish I had known this topic was going to come up. I would have brought it in a little bit, but that he looks at that, and he looks at the fact that this high level of violence is not really, like, we don't take any policy directions on it. We don't, as a community and as a larger country, we don't really put it at a high level of attention.
Like I think we should, because, you know, I think it's post-traumatic stress. I think that so many people are living in poverty and they're seeing so much that, you know, we've been dealing with post-traumatic stress since slavery, since after slavery, and we're still dealing with it.
Right.
And I think that what we should do, like, I'm just one of those people, I just acknowledge this is an issue. But if we feel a certain type of way, I think that what we need to do is forgive ourselves. We have a right to feel a certain type of way. But what we don't have a right to do is implode on ourselves. What we need to do is to figure out how we can fix what's going on. Our kids are out of control. But some of it is, I was just talking to my 21-year-old. She's down at Ohio State. So now I was getting ready to do this, and I was just telling her some of the things I was going to talk about with you all. What we got to remember is that when we see young people behave in a certain way, that some of them are just doing what they think they have to do to survive. Right. And you know what? It's easy for us to pass judgment on these young people, but we don't live their lives.
Right.
If you're living in a place where you either got to get in a gang or you're going to get ganged, what do you do?
Right.
What do? You got a choice to make. You know, and so, you know, what we need to do is give our young people a place where they can go to school without having to get killed. And I went back to another one of your questions about the young people and guns. And I really wanted to make sure we touched on that, because you do see white young men, a lot of them, you see people thinking that these kids are school shooters and that our kids are not. The problem is that you do have kids that are shooting in schools, but they don't have metal detectors. It's easier to get guns into their schools. Our kids, a lot of their schools do have metal detectors. It doesn't mean they're not using guns and they're not killing people, because you see all these drive-bys.
Right.
You see all these, it's the same exact thing. Okay? Metal detectors. It's easier to get guns into their schools. Our kids, a lot of their schools do have metal detectors. It doesn't mean they're not using guns and they're not killing people, because you see all these drive-bys.
Right.
You see all these, it's the same exact thing. Okay?
It's actually a good transition for us because as we come up on the time that we have left, I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to talk about your books. You have 2 books, right?
I have 2 novels and a workbook.
All right. Let's talk about all 3 of them. Let's tell people where they can get them and everything. So
all right,
however you want to proceed.
All right. Well, my first book is called The Anniversary. It came out in 2017. It recently won the Independent Author Network's. It was the 2020 finalist for Book of the Year in the Outstanding Women's Fiction category. So I'm very, very proud of that book. I really used the book to talk about mental health and to talk about one particular family and what they're dealing with. Okay. And how one person doesn't tell everything they probably should have, and the tragedy that occurs because of it. A lot of people, really do like it. It deals with a whole bunch of different topics, but the biggest topic is mental health. In my second book, The Commemoration, it came out last May. It's a sequel to the first book, The Anniversary. It's called The Commemoration. And I really have a huge sickle cell theme in that book, as well as a human trafficking theme. I did the 2 on purpose. My father, when I was 8 years old, he passed away from sickle cell disease, as well as my grandmother, 2 aunts, and an uncle, all on my paternal father's side. And then me having such a huge history of this and knowing a lot about it, me and my husband, we got married and we had a child, and she has something called hemoglobin SC, which is a form of sickle cell I didn't even realize was possible. So I didn't realize that there were different forms of sickle cell disease. And I'm a pretty educated lady, so I figured if I didn't know that, a whole bunch of other people probably don't either. Right. So I use my book as a way to try to actually educate the community about sickle cell disease, mental health, and human trafficking, because human trafficking is huge in our community. It is seriously impacting our young people, and I really wanted to bring awareness to that.
Can you talk a little bit about actually, before we go into that, because sometimes the topics just take us different places.
Yes.
I want to talk about human trafficking, but tell our viewers and listeners how they can get your books.
Yes, you can go on my website at www.novelistjjwinston.com. You can also find me on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, pretty much where you buy books, you can find me if you run my name, and that is Novelist JJ Winston. Everything is that, my Instagram, my Facebook. I do a monthly newsletter. Please go on and sign up so you can get a copy of my newsletter where I actually educate the community about a different topic or 2 different topics every month as they relate to mental health. And sometimes legal too, but basically mental health. Right, so that's what I'm trying to do.
We'll definitely be checking that out. I'm going to
Yes, I'd appreciate that. And I also have a YouTube page. I have a number of interviews. Go on and make sure to subscribe. Do that for me.
Yes.
Help me out.
That too. We need those subscribers too. So subscribe to both.
That's right.
Now,
while as about human trafficking.
Yes, human trafficking. Let's get into that.
I'm having like a hot flash, guys. I'm old. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I hope I'm not too shiny on the TV. I think it's the lights I got around,
It's the bright light. That's all. It's not your age at all. So let's talk about human trafficking in our community specifically. Like, what's going on? Why do you think it's such a big problem? And, why is it going, I guess, maybe unreported in many cases?
Actually, it's pretty reported, but it is really big in Ohio because of the number of different ways you can get out of our state in every direction. Mm-hmm. And you can be in Canada in a matter of hours. We are very high on the human trafficking list for states. We're high up there. But another thing is the whole drug thing. This whole drug opiate situation. So I really wanted to bring awareness to that, because I've been doing this for years, dealing with this whole basically epidemic of, opiate issues. And what drug dealers have learned is that if you sell drugs, you only get somebody can buy them from you once. If you sell a woman or a boy or a man or whoever, you can sell them over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So oftentimes what you're seeing is drug dealers and people like that who are hooking people on drugs. And that's how they're able to coerce them to do these things. Just one thing I want to say for everybody, if you are on heroin and you are dealing with withdrawal, you cannot die from heroin withdrawal. I saw Lady Sings the Blues when I was a kid. That freaked me out. I was like, you can die from that.
Right.
And then I became a professional. You cannot die, but it feels like you're going to die. That's what my people who told me who've been through it say. It feels like you're really going to die. The only drug that you can actually die from when you withdraw is alcohol.
Alcohol. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you feel like you're going to die and somebody got you that messed up, you might do anything.
Right.
You might do anything. And so what was happening was you're seeing all these women getting in trouble for prostitution. And they started looking into it and realizing some of these people aren't prostitutes. They actually are being held against their will.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody tell you, you know what, I'll let you go, give me $20,000. Or I know where everybody in your family live and I'm going to kill them.
Right.
What you going to do? Or you just, you're going to get sick. People really get sick from withdrawal. And it does make them feel like they're going to die. So I really wanted to bring awareness to it, and I kind of wrapped everything up. People really liked how I did the story, thinking that it's 3 different subjects. You got to read it.
That's right. Don't give too much away. People got to go out and buy that book.
I just want you to know those are some really serious themes. And then I have a workbook, which is a nonfiction book, and it's called The Anniversary Behavioral Health Guide. Basically, what it is an opportunity for people to really get a quick understanding of mental health. Mm-hmm. So an example, people go and they meet with their social workers and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Sometimes like this going over their head. To understand that, even when you go to your counselor or a medical doctor, they have to create a treatment plan for you that you need to have input on. Nobody should tell you what you're going to be doing. They work for you. You
Right.
tell them the things you want to work on. Right. So it's really a good resource for particularly for family members, to understand what's happening. If you have a relative who's dealing with this, mental health is a real big issue when you have somebody who is out of control, psychotic, and particularly for our community. What do? You call the police, they might kill your kid, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So one of the things you might want to do is ask for a crisis intervention trained police officer. In Ohio, we have CIT police officers. They've gone through training to deal with our population. Because sometimes, unfortunately, you might have to call the police. But what we need to understand is the police are going to tell you their goal may not be to take your family member to a hospital. Their goal is to keep peace, to make sure people are not breaking the law. So if they see somebody breaking the law, they may have to arrest that person.
Right.
Then, but what happens, I think that it gets out of control is because of fear. If you have, so that's my big issue with the police. I don't want people to work in my community, but fear me.
Right.
When I'm paying for you to be there. Because, it's my money that pays your,
right.
Your salary. Like I'm part of the community.
Right.
So, but you can ask for a crisis intervention trained police officer.
And would that be your recommendation for anyone who feels like they're stuck being trafficked? Being
no, if they're being trafficked, they need to get out. We need to get them. Right. I thought I switched subjects on us. I'm talking about mental health. No, but if trafficking is different. We have hotlines. The RAIN hotline is a good place that you can call to try to get out of where you are. I'm trying to think of, I got a name and it's on the tip of my tongue.
Because I know so many people that are caught up in human trafficking. You just touched on it. They just feel trapped, and people on the outside looking in will be like, how could you allow somebody to, pimp you out or do something like that? They just don't understand what's really going on. So that's why I asked for, like, because you've been so helpful giving us different resources for different situations.
Right.
I want to know if it was just like a hotline
RAIN
that
is
they
one
could call.
good place. Yes, we have a bunch of different hotlines, and I'm going to give you one. I didn't, you know what? I usually have all the stuff right in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't expect that question, which is my fault, and I apologize for that.
No, and you didn't know I was going to ask that
right
question.
there
Sometimes the conversation just takes us places.
The RAIN hotline, okay, it's the National Sexual Assault Telephone Hotline, and the number is 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673. And what they'll do is they will route you to people who are wherever you are. So when you call that number, it's whatever, it connects you to wherever you are to help.
And I actually think, with our time approaching, coming to the end, I think that's a good note to end on, because I think it's been very helpful to have you on here. And we didn't just talk about these issues, but we also, you provided people with real resources to help them. We didn't just make it a conversation, and we just, provided resources. And I'm hoping that anyone that's watching this that maybe is going through any of these issues or knows someone that's going through these issues will use these resources to get out of that, any type of situation. Dr. Holmes, did you have any closing statement?
Well, I didn't have a closing statement, but I tell you, I would really like to have you back on, because
I can't wait.
I had some other questions really around children because some of these kids traffic are kids,
That's right.
kids. And but kids in the children's home, in foster care.
That's true.
And there's a whole situation there that has to be addressed, and so I'd really like to have that discussion at some point with you as well.
I would love to come back and do that. And I just want to say one thing in closing about human trafficking. I want people to realize that human trafficking is not always sex. Human trafficking is modern day slavery. We have a whole bunch of kids, men, women, who they don't make them have sex. They make them work. And just lastly, I work with somebody. When I was at the Adams board, I helped him. They made him cook Chinese food 14, 15, 16 hours a day. He barely spoke the language. So it's a lot of people that they are able to take advantage of, and they make them work like they did us during slavery.
And that's an excellent point. You definitely educated me, because when I hear human trafficking, the first thing I think of is sex. Maybe that means I just have that kind of mind.
No, but that's what happens too. But it is not always that.
Right. And that's what
we got to remember that, and we need to look out for that too. If you see somebody who looks like they're, working all the time, they barely speak the language. I mean, there's different signs. Maybe, but not always.
Right. And you've been very helpful, very informative, not just to our audience, but to me. I've learned a lot. So like Dr. Holmes said, I guess our short segment wasn't enough to encapsulate everything that you're bringing to us. So we do have to bring you back soon. And I'm all for it. I'm glad you're up for it. So just thank you for joining us now. And to our audience, thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support.
All righty. Thank you guys for having me.